Appreciate it, man. All right. So my plan is I got two books here. So I have The Brotherhood, The Secret World of Freemasonry, and Inside the Brotherhood by Martin Short. Um, but what's up, Isaac? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with Orthodox Survival Course. And in Orthodox Survival Course, it has a chapter dedicated to secret societies. And I'm going to go there first, and then we're going to move on to these Brotherhood books. So it says secret societies. But to these two philosophical elements, there is added now a third thing, which is secret societies, of course. The secret societies have an underground existence throughout the period before the Enlightenment. But it is especially in the 18th century that there is born a new sect, or at least a reorganized one, and that is Freemasonry, which was born in England in 1717 and very quickly spread to France and America and the rest of Europe. Later on, we see that Freemasonry in England and in America became something rather different from the Freemasonry on the continent, especially the Catholic countries. And the reason for this is not so difficult to understand. The English mentality, which gave the world already the philosophy of deism, it is so-called conservative mentality, that is, it's capable of believing just about anything and being quite content and not pushing its beliefs to any logical conclusions. Just as later on we'll see David Hume destroys the whole of the world and then sits back and enjoys himself and drinks his coffee and smokes his pipe, not seeing that he's given ideas which will drive people to despair. In the same way, English Masonry was born out of the spirit of tolerance and seeking to find some kind of a religious belief which is neither Catholic nor Protestant, but which will bind together all men of good will. And they were satisfied with that. They had a deistic religion, the Grand Architect. There was no religious difference discussed in the lodge. You have to put religion behind. And for the Englishmen and later for the Americans, this was considered to be sufficient. If you believe in God, you can go to your Protestant church or Anglican church and be happy. Adam Weishaupt, born in 1748, Jesuit training, but hated them, turned to English philosophers, Manichaeans, and Orthodox occult doctrines, very similar philosophy to Rousseau, but added secret revolutionary society. May 1st, 1776, a combination of Freemasonry and Jesuitry. The very ideas of Masonry, the ideas of brotherhood of man, which is something above Catholicism or Protestantism. When they went to the continent, they inflamed men's minds and made them quite radical. There is in particular one kind of Freemasonry, which is apparently was evolved separately, and this is what is called Illuminism. This was the creature of one man, whose name is Adam Weishaupt. He was born in 1748. He went through a Jesuit education and later on came to hate the Jesuits. He turned to the French philosophers, the Manichaean philosophy, and apparently had some kind of occult initiation in one of the many occult sects. Let us examine here a few of his views. He says, in agreement with Rousseau, that civilization is a great mistake, and to this all the inequalities of human life are due. He says man has fallen from the condition of liberty and equality in the state of pure nature. He is under subordination and civil bondage arising from the vices of man. This is the fall in the original sin. Notice he uses Christian term here, original sin. Later on, we'll see how this is all an imitation of Christianity. According to him, all the arts and sciences must be abolished. He says, quote, do the common sciences afford real enlightenment, real human happiness, or are they not rather children of necessity? the complicated needs of a state contrary to nature, the inventions of vain and empty brains. Why, he asks, should it be impossible to the human race to attain its highest perfection? The capacity for governing itself. For this reason, he taught that not only should kings and nobles be abolished, but even a republic should not be tolerated, and the people should be taught to do without any controlling authority, any law, or any civil code. In order to make this system a success would be necessarily only to inoculate in man a just and steady morality. And since Weishaupt professed to share Rousseau a belief in the inherent goodness of human nature, this would not be difficult, and society might then go on peaceably in a state of perfect liberty and equality. For since the only real obstacle to human perfection lay in the restraints imposed on man by artificial conditions of life, the removal of these must inevitably restore him to his primitive virtue. Man is not bad except as he is made so by arbitrary morality. He is bad because religion, the state, and bad because examples it perverts him. It was necessary, therefore, to root out from his mind all ideas of hereafter, all fear of retribution for evil deeds, and to substitute from these superstitions the religion of reason. Quote, when all least reason becomes the religion of men, then will the problem be solved. After deliverance from the bondage of religion, the loosening of all social ties must follow. Both family and national life must cease to exist so as to, quote, make of the human race one good and happy family. The origins of patriotism and the love of kindred are thus described by Weishaupt in the direction given in his Hierophants for the instruction of initiates. Quote, at the moment when men united themselves into nations, they ceased to recognize themselves under a common name. Nationalism or national love took the place of universal love. With the divisions of the globe and its countries, benevolence restricted itself behind boundaries that it was never again to transgress. Then it became a virtue to spread out at the expense of those who did not happen to be under our dominion. Then, in order to attain this goal, it became permissible to despise foreigners and to deceive and to offend them. This virtue was called patriotism. That man was called a patriot, who, while just towards his own people, was unjust to others, who blinded himself to the merits of foreigners and took for the perfection the vices of his own country. So one sees that patriotism gave birth to localism, to the family spirit, and finally to egotism. Thus, the origin or states of governments or civil societies was the seed of discord, and patriotism found its own punishment in itself. Diminish, do away with this love of country, and men will once more learn to know and love each other as men. There will be no more partiality. The ties between hearts will unroll and extend. In these words, the purest expression of internationalism as it was expounded today, Weishaupt displayed an ignorance of primeval conditions of life as profound as that of Rousseau. The ideas of Paleolithic man, whose skeleton is usually exhumed with a flint instrument or other weapon of warfare grasped in his hands, passing his existence in a state of universal love, is simply ludicrous. It was not, however, in his diatribes against civilization that Weishaupt surprised Rousseau, but in the plan he devised by overthrowing it. Rousseau had merely paved the way for revolution. Weishaupt constructed the actual machinery of revolution itself. It was on the 1st of May 1776 that Weishaupt 5 years of meditation resulted in his founding the secret society he named after bygone philosophical systems, the Illuminati. Abolition of religion, abolition of obedience. The grades of the order were a combination of grades of Freemasonry and the degrees belonging to the Jesuits. Weishaupt had already been said detested the Jesuits, but recognizing the efficiency of their methods in acquiring influence over the minds of their disciples, he conceived the idea of adopting their system in his own purpose. He admired, said the Abbe Barel, the institutions of the founders of this order. He admired above all those laws, that regimen of the Jesuits, which under one head made so many men dispersed all over the universe, tend towards the same object. He felt that one might initiate their methods while proposing to himself views diametrically opposed. He said to himself, "What all these men have done for altars and empires, why should I not do against altars and empires? But the attraction and mysteries of legends of adepts, why should I not destroy in the dark what they erect in the light of day?" It was in the training of adepts that Weishaupt showed his profound sobriety. Proselytes were not to be admitted at once to the secret aims of Illuminism, but initiated step by step into the higher mysteries. And the greatest caution was to be exercised not to reveal to the novice doctrines that might be quickly to revolt him. For this purpose, the initiators must acquire the habit of, quote, talking backwards and forwards. So as not to commit themselves, one must speak, Weishaupt explained, to the superiors of the order, sometimes in one way or sometimes in another, so that our real purpose should remain impenetrable to our inferiors. Thus, to certain novices, the novice Cosius, the Illuminati must profess to disapprove of revolutions and demonstrate the advantages of proceeding by peaceful methods towards the attainment of world domination. The passage then goes on to say vaguely that this is not the case and that the order only demands of the initiate to the fulfillment of his obligations, nor must his antagonism to religion be admitted. On the contrary, Christ was to be represented as the first author of Illuminism, whose secret mission was to restore to men the original liberty and equality they had lost in the fall. No one, the novice, should be told, paves so sure a way for liberty as our Grand Master Jesus of Nazareth, and if Christ has exhorted his disciples to despise riches, it was in order to prepare the world for the community of goods that should do away with property. Wow, okay, this is interesting. Oh, I didn't know that. Had no clue. That's cool. Okay, so continuing. Novices initiated step by step into the higher mysteries. It was not then until his admission to the higher grades that the adept was initiated into the real intentions of Illuminism with regard to a religion. When he reached the grade of illuminated major or minor of the Scotch knight, epote, or priest, he was told that the whole secret of the order in a discourse for the initiator, quote, "Remember that from the first invitations which we have given you in order to attract you to us, we commenced by telling you that in the projects of our order there did not enter any designs against religion. You remember that such an assurance was given you when you were admitted into the ranks uh, of us as a novice, and that it was repeated when you entered into our Minerval Academy. You remember with what art, with what simulated respect we have spoken to you of Christ and of his gospel, but in the grades of the great Illuminism of Scott Knight and of the epote or priest, how we have to know to form the Christ gospel that our reason from its religion that of nature, and from religion reason morality and nature to make the religion morality of rights of man, of equality and of liberty. We have many prejudices to overcome in you before being able to persuade you that the pretended religion of Christ was nothing else than the work of priests, of imposture and of tyranny. If be so, with that religion so much proclaimed and admired, What are we to think of other religions? Understand then that they have all the same fictions for their origins, that they are all equally founded on lying, error, chimera, and imposture. Behold our secret. If in order to destroy all Christianity, all religion, we have pretended to have the sole true religion, remember that the end justifies the means, and that the wise ought to take all the means to do good, which is the wicked to take to do evil. Those which have to take in for the delivery of you, those which have taken to deliver one day the human race from all religion, are nothing else than a pious fraud, which was to reserve to unveil one day of the grade of the magus or the philosopher illuminated. Uh, but all this was unknown to the novice, whose confidence being won by the simulation of religion was enjoined to strict obedience. Amongst the questions put to him were the following: if you came to discover anything wrong or unjust to be done in the order, what line would you take? Will you and can you regard the good of the order as your own good? Will you give to our society the right of life and death? Do you bind yourself to the absolute and unreserved obedience? And do you know the force of this undertaking? By way of the warning, as a consequence of betraying the order, a foreseeable illustration was included in the ceremony of initiation. Taking a naked sword from the table, the initiator held the point against the heart of the novice with these words: if you are only a traitor and a perjurer, learn that all our brothers are called upon to arm themselves against you. Do not hope to escape or to find a place of safety wherever you are. Shame, remorse, and the rage of our brothers will pursue you and torment you into the innermost recesses of your entrails. It will thus be seen that the liberty vaunted by the leaders of the Illuminati had no existence, and from the iron discipline was in reality the watchword of the order. A great point impressed upon the adepts, of which we shall see. The important later was that they should not be known as Illuminati. This rule was particularly enforced in the case of those scribes as enrollers. This is crazy. So, okay. Bonnie, what? Okay. Alright, so we're going to continue. Women were to be used as fools with money. Women were also to be enlisted as the Illuminati by giving hints of an emancipation. Uh, through women, wrote Weishaupt, one may often work the best in the world. To insinuate ourselves with these and to win them over should be one of our cleverest studies. More or less, they can all be led towards change by vanity, curiosity, sensuality, and inclination. For this can one draw much profit for the good cause. This sex has a large part of the world in its hands. The female adepts were then to be divided into two classes, each with its own secret. The first to consist of virtuous women who would give an air of respectability to the order. The second of light women would help to satisfy those brothers who have a penchant for pleasure. But the present utility of both classes would consist in providing funds for the society. Fools with money, whether men or women, were to be particularly welcomed. These good people, wrote Spartacus to Ajax and Cato, swell our members and fill our money box. Set yourself to work. These gentlemen must be made to nibble at the bait. But let us beware of telling our secrets. This sort of people must always be made to believe that the grade they have reached is the last. System of universal spying. Espionage formed a large part of Weishaupt's program. The adepts known as the insinuating brothers were enjoined to assume the role of observers and reporters. Every person enjoined to assume the role. Every person shall be made a spy on the other, and the other way around. Friends, relations, enemies, those who are indifferent, all without exception shall be the object of inquiries. He shall attempt to discover their strong side and their weak, their passions, their prejudices, their connections, and above all, their actions. In a word, the most detailed information about them. All this is to be entered on the tablets and the insinuant carries with him, and from which he shall draw up reports to be sent and twice a month to his superiors, so that the order may know which are the people in each town and village to whom to look for support. Anti-science and civilization in general. Sciences are the complicated needs of a state contrary to nature, the inventions of vain and empty brains. Sent apostles. From the first year of his Weishaupt's Illuminism, in his atrocious impiety aping the God of Christianity, he conceived in these terms the orders he would give to the Massahausen to propagate his new gospel. Did not Jesus Christ send forth his apostles to preach throughout the world or universe? You who are my Peter, why would I allow you to be able to be quiet at home? Go then and preach. Martinism, also important. In the book of St. Martin, Dis Erus et de la Verite, Verite, I guess, I don't know, I don't speak this language, published in 1776, the formula liberty, equality, and fraternity is referred to as a la tournée sacrée. The Martinists, frequently referred to in French contemporary records as the Illume, were in reality dreamers and fanatics, and must not be confounded with the Order of the Illuminati of Bavaria that came into existence 22 years later. It is by this terrible and formidable sect that the gigantic plan of world revolution was worked out under the leadership of the man Louis Blanc, as truly described as the profoundest conspirator that has ever existed. Okay. Hot here. All right. Congress of Wilhelmbad, 1782. Illuminism and Freemasonry united to pursue common end, claiming 3 million members. But it was not until the Congress de Wilhelmbad that the alliance between Illuminism and Freemasonry was finally sealed. This assembly, of which the importance to the subsequent history of the world has never been appreciated by historians, met for the first time on the 16th of July, 1782, and included representatives of all secret societies, the Martinistes, as well as Freemasons and Illuminati, which now numbered no less than 3 million members all over the world. Amongst these different orders, the Illuminati of Bavaria alone had formulated a definite plan of campaign, and it was by they who henceforth took the lead. What passed at this terrible Congress will never be known to the outside world, for even those men who had been drawn unwittingly into the movement and had now heard for the first time the real designs of the leaders were under oath to reveal nothing. One such honest Mason, the Court de Verrières, a member of the Martinisti, a lodge at Lyons, returning from the Congress de Wilhelmbad. I don't know how to say that word, but it's for anybody who wants to look this up. It's Wilhelmsbad. Williamsbad or something. Wilhelmsbad. Maybe, I don't know. Could not conceal his alarm. And when questioned on the tragic secret he had brought back with him, he replied, I will not confide them to you. I can only tell you that all this is very much serious than you think. The conspiracy which is being woven is so well thought out that it will be, so to speak, impossible for the monarchy and the church to escape from it. And from this time onwards, wow. The Comité de Verrou could only speak of Freemasonry with horror. So, this is kind of what I'm getting at. So, I've read this in the past, and I've been reading these other books on Masonry, I did an earlier episode on this where we talked about sort of these Masons ascending these hierarchies within the church, and this was this plan, right? And we're seeing it play out. The plan has played out. Um, so it's pretty interesting stuff. Give me one moment. I need to grab something. Okay. So here we go. Elector of Bavaria prohibited all secret societies in 1784. Public opinion had now, however, become thoroughly aroused on the subject of the society, and the Elector of Bavaria, informed of the danger to the state constituted by its adepts, and who were said to have declared the quote, Illuminati must in time rule the world, published in an edict forbidding all secret societies. Illuminati arrested, tried, documents publicized, 1785. In April of the following year, 1785, four other Illuminati disguised by the tyranny of Weishaupt were summoned before a court of inquiry to give an account of the doctrines and methods of the sect. The evidence of these men left no further room for doubt as to the diabolical nature of Luminism. All religion, they declared, all love of country and loyalty to sovereigns were to be annihilated, and favorite maxim of the order being tous les rus et tous lex petres sunt des fripons et des traités. I don't know, dude, I tried. Moreover, every effort was to be made to create discord, not only between princes and their subjects, but between ministers and their secretaries, and even between parents and children, whilst offing yourself was to be encouraged by inoculating in men's minds the idea that the act of killing oneself afforded a certain voluptuous pleasure. Espionage was to be extended even to the post by placing adepts in the post offices who possessed the art of opening letters and closing them again without fear of detection. Robinson, who studied all the evidence of the four professors, thus sums up the plan of Weishaupt as revealed by them. The order of the Illuminati adjured Christianity and advocated sensual pleasures. In the lodges, death was declared an eternal step. Patriotism and loyalty were called narrow-minded prejudices and incompatible with the universal benevolence. Further, they accounted all princes uh, usurps usurpers. I don't know how to say that word. Never have. Usurpers. I think that's it. And tyrants, and all privileged orders as their arbiters. They meant to abolish the laws which protected property accumulated by long continued and successful industry, and to prevent for the future any accumulation. They intended to establish universal liberty and equality, the imprescriptible rights of man, and as necessary preparation for all this, that they intended to root out all religion and ordinary morality, and even to break the bonds of domestic life by destroying the veneration for marriage vows, and by taking the education of children out of the hands of the parents. Summary. Reduced to a simple formula, the aims of the Illuminati may be summarized by the following 6 points: abolition of monarchy and all ordered government, abolition of private property, abolition of inheritance, abolition of patriotism, abolition of family, i.e., of marriage and all morality, and the institution of the communal education of children, and abolition of all religion. Now it will surely be admitted that the above forms of program, hitherto unprecedented in the history of the world, communistic theories have been held by the isolated thinkers or group thinkers since the days of Plato. But no one, as far as we know, had ever yet seriously proposed to destroy everything for which civilization stands. Moreover, as we have seen, the plan of the Illuminism, as codified by the above 6 points, has continued up to the present day to the form exact program of world revolution. How can we doubt that the whole movement originated with the Illuminati, or with the secret influences at work behind them? It was on the 11th of October, 1786, that the Bavarian authorities descended upon the house of Zwock and seized documents which laid before the method of conspirators. Here were found descriptions of a strong box or safe, guarding papers which, if forced open, would blow up by means of an infernal machine of a composition which should blind or kill if squirted in the face, of a method for the counterfeiting seals, receipts for a particularly deadly kind of aqua tofana, for the poisonous perfumes that would fill a bedroom with pestilential vapors, and for a tea to procure abortion. A eulogy of atheism entitled Better Than Horace was also discovered, and a paper in the handwriting of Zwock describing the plan for enlisting women in the 2 classes mentioned above. It will be of a great service and procure more information and money, and it will suit charmingly the taste of many of our truest members who are lovers of the sex. And it should consist of 2 classes, the virtuous and the free-hearted. They must not know of each other, and must be under the direction of men, without knowing it, through good books, and the latter class through the indulging of their passions in the concealment. The fearful danger presented by the Illuminati now became apparent, and the government of Bulgaria, judging that the best manner of conveying a warning to the civilized world would be to allow the papers to speak for themselves, ordered them to be printed forthwith and circulated as widely as possible. A copy of this publication, entitled Original Writings of the Order of the Illuminati, was then forwarded to every government of Europe, but, strange to say, attracted little attention. The truth being doubtless, as the Abbé Barel points out, that the extravaganza of the scheme therein propounded rendered it unbelievable, and the rulers of Europe, refusing to take Illuminism seriously, put it aside as a chimera. Okay, so there we have the beginning of my video. I'm going to move on to the next chapter in this, the Revolution, and then we're going to go to the Brotherhood, and so we'll see where it goes. How's everybody doing? I don't know. This whole thing here, I'm not sure about that. I've heard that. I've looked into it. I can't say for sure that that's the case, and that is there's speculation that that might be it, and that it could have been used as like some holy anointing oil, and there was found some traces in but no, really, truthfully, I think there was somebody else that looked into that, and it was likely what kind of plant was it? I forget, but it wasn't what some people say it is. It wasn't a marijuana plant, but I can understand that view too. Okay, all right. The revolution, calling of Saint the okay, wait, calling of sergeants general because of financial difficulties, the pretext for enlightenment ideas to work. The revolution was radical from the beginning and had immense support from the spirit of the age. Wordsmith. Bliss was it in the scene to be alive, but to be young was very heaven. Was very heaven. It was very strange. Jacobins took the lead from the beginning. The only real party agreed beforehand on the policy in National Assembly, well organized, 406 affiliated societies in the province with 500,000 members of 1793. They took control, power from secret societies, conceived not many years before the French Revolution in the thoughts of a man whose total ambition seemed absorbed at Ingolstadt in the chalk dust of schools. Now it is that Illuminism, in less than 20 years, became the formidable sect which, under the name of Jacobins, counts today as its trophies so many altars fallen to pieces, so many scepters broken or mangled, so many constitutions overturned, so many nations subjugated, so many potentates fallen under its daggers or its poison of its executioners, so many potentates humiliated beneath the yoke of servitude called peace, or of a servitude even more dishonorable called alliance. Under this same name, Jacobins um, swallowed up simultaneously all the secrets, all the conspiracies, all the sects of sworn infidels, of seditious plotters or disorganizing plotters. How is it that Illuminism sets up such a dominion of fear that, holding a universe in dismay, it permits not a single king to say, "Tomorrow I still will be king," and not a single people, "Tomorrow I will have any laws in my religion." Not a single citizen tomorrow, but both my fortune and my home will still be mine. Tomorrow I will not awaken beneath the tree of liberty on one side and the tree of death, the ravenous guillotine on the other. Invisible authors, how is it that the secret adepts of modern day Spartacus alone persuade and the crimes of the disasters of this plague of the uh, uh, brigandage? I don't know. The ferocity called revolution. How do they still preside over all the sex plans in order to consummate the dissolution of human societies? The Jacobins' uh, orders were instantly obeyed. They drink each other's blood to the death of kings. Western fall of monarchy in 1792. Destruction begins in earnest. I found the letter. It was composed in the terms, "Your letter, my dear friend, has been read in the presence of the whole club." It was surprised to find so much philosophy in a village curate. "Never fear, my dear curate. We are 300. We mark the heads and they fall. As for that in which you speak, it is not time yet. Only keep your people ready and dispose your parishioners to execute the orders, and they shall be given to you in time." This letter was signed Dierich, secretary. To the reflections which this letter suggests, I shall add only that the club from where it was sent had changed the place of its meeting to the suburb of Saint Honoré. Honoré? I don't know. And there it must, and there it remained unknown to the court until the moment of one of these, these orgies, and whose object would be to again apprise the king of the fate that awaited him. After one of these repasts, celebrated in the name of fraternity, all the brothers would prick their arms and drain their blood into the glasses. All would drink of this blood after the creed, "Death to the Kings." And this would be the last toast of their fraternal repast. This letter tells us also which men formed the Legion of the 1200, which Jean de Brie composed to establish at the convention, whose goals was to be spread into the empires to assassinate all the kings of the earth. This is wild. The Great Fear. I'm like walking in circles reading this. I need to chill out. Okay. The Great Fear, July 1789. Violence, the usual interpretation, incidental, passion, aroused, national events, etc. But evidence points to deliberate use. When there are real grievances, they are exploited by clever politicians to promote the revolution, great rule of agitators. To whatever agency we attribute it, however, the mechanism of the French Revolution distinguishes it from all previous revolutions. Hitherto, the isolated revolutions that had taken place throughout the history of the world can be clearly recognized as spontaneous movement brought about by oppression or by political faction, enjoying some measure of popular support, and therefore endeavoring to satisfy the demands of the people. But in the French Revolution, we see for the first time that plan is in operation, which has been carried out right up to the present moment. The systematic attempt to create grievances in order to exploit them. The most remarkable instances of engineering agitation during the early stages of the revolution was extraordinary incitement known to the history of the Great Fear, when on the same day of July 22nd, 1789, and almost at the same hour in the towns of the villages over France, a panic was created by the announcement that brigades were approaching, and therefore all the good citizens must take up arms. The messengers who brought the news, post haste on horseback in many cases, exhibited place cards headed "Edict of the King," bearing the words, "The King's order to be burnt down. He only wishes to keep his own." And the people, obedient to these commands, seized upon every weapon they could find and set themselves to the task of the destruction. The object of the conspirators was thus achieved: the arming of the populace against law and order. A device which since 1789 has also formed the first item in the program, a social revolution. Protest of Women, October 5th, 1789. So, does anybody, hearing this? Yeah, I know. You always give me, you always say this. I know. Okay. Let me see. Maybe get something to drink. I think a lot of this stuff is kind of revealing the state that we're in today and the games people play to this day. I lose my voice when I read. That's what it is. Okay. The Reign of Terror under Robespierre. Okay. Ostensibly invoked by foreign invasion, seeking enemies of the people inside this a means of governing communism. But deeper, there was a little publicized plan of depopulation. Report of the Committee of Public Safety, August 8th, 1795. Be peaceful. France has enough for 12 million men. All the rest, 12 million, will have to be put to death, and then you will no longer lack for bread. It was she, the sect has extinguished even the affectionate of a brother for his brother, of the child for his father. When the adoptioneer, at the sight of a brother delivered over to the executioners, coolly replied, "If my brother is not in the settlement of the revolution, let him be sacrificed." When the adept Philip brought in triumph to the Jacobins, the heads of his fathers and the mothers, this sect also uh, insatiable for blood, which by the mouth of Marat demanded yet 270,000 heads, which before long could only be counted by millions. She, the sect, knew it. All the secrets of its equality could only be accomplished in the great events by depopulating the world. And the sect replied through Lebeau to the communes of Montauban, terrified for what of provisions. Never fear, France is enough for 12 million men. It is necessary that the rest, that is, the other 12 million Frenchmen, must be put to death, and then you will no longer lack bread. And I think Russia did something like this too, honestly. Like they had like a very strategic plan to kill off a major part of the population, and then and then you have people saying things like, "Well, see, there was uh, when Stalin was in office, we had a lot more food and resources and all this other stuff." It's like, yeah, because they killed off so many people. Revolution. Tribunal discussed reduction of population to 1/3 or 1/2. Committee of Public Safety calculated how many heads had to be in each town and district, drowned, guillotined, or shot. Perhaps 300,000. 300,000, which of only 300 nobles, most peasants and workers. At Nantes, 500 children of poor people were killed in one butchery. 144 poor women thrown into the river, etc. Killing and destruction especially fierce. Um, September 1792, massacres of priests and others in prison. Cannibalism and torture. The violence calculated in Marx's idea. Cicier's reply, "And you speak to us always about our means. Monsieur, it is the end, it is the object, and the goal that you must learn to see." Saint Just, I will walk willingly with my feet in blood and tears. I will walk willingly with my feet in blood and tears, said Robespierre. Conjure Saint Just, and this, whether he admits it or not, must be the maxim of every revolutionary socialist who believes that any method are justifiable for the attainment of his end. Okay. Conspiracy of the Equals. Disciple of Weishaupt followed Robespierre's communist idea, said depopulation was the immense secret of terror, claimed it took 1 million lives, formed his own Masonic organization for bringing about equality, a communist. Unfortunately, the confusion of mind prevailing amongst the advocates of, quote, equality was so great that the meeting, which before long consisted of 2,000 people, became like a Tower of Babel. Excuse me. No one knew precisely what he wanted, and no decision could be reached. It was therefore decided to supplement these huge assemblies by small secret committees, and here the scheme of social revolution was elaborated. Starting from the premise that all property is theft, it was decided that the process known in revolutionary language as expropriation must take place. That is to say, all property must be wrestled from its present owners by force and the force of an armed mob. This is straight up like out of the February Revolution in Russia. the same thing. Like, if you look at the French Revolution and the February Revolution in Russia, it's the exact same thing. And the same tactics are used today, like, without a doubt. This is pretty psycho, honestly. I can't breathe right now for whatever reason. I'm having trouble breathing. Okay. So, Neurojack, what are you doing, man? Like, why would you even do that? Because now I feel like I have to, like, try to figure out your little message you sent me, and that's kind of annoying. Okay, Okay, I think I'm going to move on to this book, The Brotherhood, now. Okay, so we're going to go to ritual or religion. There's a chapter in the book. I named it after this, right? I named this episode after this particular chapter, ritual or religion. So, sorcery, sex, Satan, and skulls. Okay, so I became a Freemasoner in 1970, but even as I was going through the first degree ritual, I had misgivings. It felt odd swearing to that horrific oath on the Bible while a sharp compass point was thrust hard against my naked left breast. It felt odder still to be told that the seal oath by kissing the Bible and then have my face thrust into the compass and square as they laid cradle on its open pages. It was only after later that I realized that the compass and square were arranged in the shape of vesica piscis, and the whole ceremony had sexual overtones. I don't know what that means. Despite my unease, I passed through the three craft degrees in just 3 meetings. During the third degree ritual, the deacons laid me on the floor and wrapped me in a shroud, a black sheet with a white skull and crossbones embroidered on it. They told me to stay as still as if I were dead, until they lifted me to my feet. In the lodge master applied the master mason script. As I lay there, I suddenly felt the overpowering presence of evil. I had never consciously thought about evil before, let alone felt it. But now my brain was pounding. I felt a piercing pain in my skull, like the worst headache you can never imagine. Even so, I went through with the ceremony and became a master mason. This story may sound like the ramblings of a man obsessed by occult fantasies, someone who probably cannot hold down a decent job. In fact, the speaker is a leading city of London uh, financier. Over the lunch in the heart of the square mile, he explained how he had been through a deeply disturbing experience. The stabbing headache kept coming back, not only on lodge nights, but every night for more than 10 years. I suffered the worst attacks in my bed, of all places. So I got into the compulsive habit of laying out a pair of socks in the form of a cross on the floor beside my bed before could get to sleep. I don't know if my wife ever noticed this. I suppose I was trying to repel evil, though I never reasoned it out that way at the time. I attended my Masonic lodge for 7 years and then resigned. Later, I realized that this period coincided exactly with the years when I was suffering constant illness, glandular fever, chronic pharyngitis, spontaneous hemorrhaging, and malignant skin cancer. I might have induced these conditions myself, I suppose, but the skin cancer went far beyond most people's psychosomatic powers. By now, I was constantly swallowing Valium and sleeping pills. I was also afflicted with acute trigeminal neuralgia, a facial paralysis, rather like what you feel from a dental injection, but it doesn't go away. Also, a dental injection prevents pain, but this was causing it so much that sometimes I screamed out in agony. By 1980, uh, he was near offing himself. One Sunday, when I was very low indeed, I went to my parish church and I felt compelled to take communion. When I got to the rail, I begged for forgiveness and asked to be fed with the bread of life. I don't remember taking the sacraments, but when I got home, my family say my face was shining. Several months later, I realized that this was the very day I suddenly stopped taking all those pills. It sounds corny, I know, but I found God. I became a committed Christian and spoke to groups all over the country, but I was still in torment. I realized that during a meeting in Peterborough, the chairman volunteered me to pray for many people present who were in distress. Someone came forward, desperate for help, but I had no experience of this kind of work. I tried to extend my arms in support by elbows, which were locked rigid. I felt terrible. I got out of the hall as soon as I could. I knew there was something seriously wrong with me, so I prayed for help. I told a friend who introduced me to a Pentecostal minister. He said he felt I was treasuring some things, which in the eyes of God formed a spiritual bondage, which with an illicit past. So, if anybody knows, I'm Orthodox. If you're new here, I'm true Orthodox actually, and I've done episodes on Pentecostalism and how it's closely related with, the occult. Actually, like their experiences are very closely related with occult experiences. So this guy went from Freemasonry to like a Pentecostal pastor. It's like one uh, delusion to the next, really. He did not identify the object, but he said that the source of the evil was in my bedroom, on the top of the wardrobe and the dressing table. These were the exact place where I kept my Masonic regula and ritual books. When I got home, I took them straight around to my vicar, and he said the only thing to do was to destroy them. So he threw them on a bonfire. That night, I stopped arranging my socks in the shape of a cross. I knew at the last, at I knew at last the oppressive curse had been broken. Thinking back to the Masonic ceremony when I was first sensed overpowering evil, I realized I may have been particularly susceptible to such feelings. Perhaps I'm psychic, whereas most other Freemasons, good men, I'm sure, simply don't respond to such vibrations. Whenever the explanation, I would not wish on anyone the distress which the Masonic uh, uh, experience caused me for so many years. I'll quote this testimony at length because it is typical of many confessions I have heard in the past 3 years, usually from the more born again or charismatic Christians. Under the noises of denominations and fundamentalist revival has been taking place, this is not good news for the sections of the Anglican hierarchy. It is bad news for Freemasonry. David Vaughan, businessman, says in Freemasonry, Satan affects the wife as well as the husband by making it difficult for couples to pray together. Since Jesus let him out and he and his wife had prayed together, I sold all my regalia and burned the rituals and certificates. Ever since then, I have always advised freed Masons to burn the lot. Vaughn belongs to a group calling itself the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship. I went to one of its meetings in Oxfordshire one torrential night, in the unlikely surrounding of an ex-servicemen's club, all booze fags, and darts. Some 60 sober Christian folk shared a meal and heard a surveyor named John Walker tell of his flight from the Mason cult. I believe it is of the devil, he said. It has a satanic origin. And then he went through the full slate of Christian objects. He recalled how he went to a Masonic Knights Templar meeting with the 5 Anglican clergymen who also attended. While everyone else was dressed as crusaders, the priests were clad in surplice, cassock, and beretta, as if to show Christian support for the rituals. Many Masons are fine men, said Walker, but they are held in spiritual bondage. When Walker renounced Freemasonry, he was afraid of losing business because being involved in Masonry is a useful is useful to your career. He was very worried about the reaction of one Mason architect who had given him a lot of surveying work. When Walker told him Jesus means more than Freemasonry, the architect replied, "John, you're a fool." Walker thought the man would never employ him again, but we're still working for him. God has protected us. Jesus is the Lord of my business and my life. Walker told me that sometimes at these meetings, people openly renounce Freemasonry and declare for Jesus. No such thing happened this evening. There was many hallelujahs and much speaking in tongues until one woman came forward to give herself to Christ. She was embraced by healers, laid back on the floor in a swoon, and then resurrected. It all seemed a bit like Freemasonry's third degree. That's funny that this person says this, that this kind of like Pentecostal born again experience seemed almost like Freemasonry's third degree. Neutral observers might feel like born again Christians attacking Freemasonry is like the pot calling the kettle black. But there is evidence to justify concern over the psychiatric impact when the rituals might have susceptible personalities. The Church of England group, which was convinced by submission and had received from sources other than mine that the dramatic effect of the rituals had a psychic effect, some Christians found them positively evil, including one ex-Mason whose letter was quoted in the Anglican report. For a long time, even after my conversion, I defended Masonry and maintained that I was able to reconcile its philosophy and precepts, supposedly based on teaching morality and charity, with Christianity. But in his time, in his own gentle way, the Holy Spirit began to show me how blind I had been, and how effectively the enemy can use his weapons of subtlety and rationality in a blinding process. It was the point of having my eyes fully open and my heart sufficiently convicted of the evils attached to Masonry and the powerful bondage it imposes. It was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, getting rid of my regalia, Masonic literature, and all the outward trappings of this evil craft. But this was not enough. The Holy Spirit showed that another step had to be taken in order to completely release me from the bondage I was in, and that was to approach a brother in Christ who would pray for my release. This he did with the laying on of hands, and what a beautiful sense of lightness and freedom I experienced with the oppression was lifted. So now we're seeing, you know, this person kind of falling into another trap, the charismatic movement, which is a similar spirit to Masonry. It's Satan, that gives these people this, oh, they're free. This is the way that prelest works, that, you'll go from one trap to the another, and the devil just sort of laughs as he gets you further and further stuck into another trap. Um, Nobody really wants to hear that, I guess. It is what it is. Let's see if I can find something on some spiritual illusion here. Looking at the book and seeing warfare. But I'm probably gonna grab my copy of books all around me right now. Looking for a particular book. Where's the book? Where's the book? Alright, 1 second, guys. So I'm gonna turn on the thing, look for my book, and I'll be right back. Okay, alright. Costa Dier took the mic and told us how his heart was burdened for the Greek Orthodox Church. He asked Episcopalian the Driscoll to pray that the Holy Spirit would sweep that the church as he was sweeping the Catholic Church. While Father Driscoll prayed, Costa Dier wept into the mic. Following the prayer was a long message in tongues and an equally long interpretation, saying that the prayers had been heard, and the Holy Spirit would blow through and awaken the Greek Orthodox Church. By this time, there was so much weeping and calling out that I backed away for all of it emotionally, and yet I had heard myself saying a surprising thing. Someday, when we read how the Spirit is moving in the Greek Orthodox Church, let us remember that we were here in the moment that it began. 6 months after the events had occurred at an interdenominational charismatic meeting in Seattle. Orthodox Christians did indeed begin to hear that the charismatic spirit was moving in the Greek Orthodox Church, beginning on January 1972. Father Eusebius Stefano of Logos began to report on this movement, which he had begun earlier in several Greek and Syrian parishes in America, and now has spread to a number of others, being actively promoted by Father Eusebius. After the reading the description of this spirit from the words of its leading representatives in the pages that follow, he should not find it difficult to believe that in the very fact it was invoked and instilled in the Orthodox world by a just urgent entities of interdenominational Christians. For one conclusion emerges from this description. It must certainly be that this spectacular present-day charismatic revival is not merely a phenomenon of hyper-emotionalism and Protestant revivalism, although these elements are also strongly present, but is actually the work of a spirit who can be evoked and which works, quote, miracles. The question we are attempting to answer in these pages is, what or who is this spirit? As Orthodox Christians, we know that it is not only God who works miracles. The devil also has his own miracles. And it is in fact he can do and does imitate virtually every genuine miracle of God. We shall therefore attempt in these pages to be careful to try to test the spirits whether they are of God. 1 John 4 and 1. We shall begin with a brief historical background, since no one can deny that the charismatic revival has come to the Orthodox world from the Protestant and Catholic denominations, which in turn received it from the Pentecostal sect. Okay, so this is Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future. That's page 116 in the 2004 edition. I would recommend getting an earlier edition of this book. But I did that just to kind of point out, an Orthodox understanding that this is probably of the devil. This other Freemasons whole thing. So this is the end of my video. I appreciate everybody that stopped by, and we'll return. I'm losing my voice, so have a nice one. I'm Unseen Warfare. Later.